All right. Penny and Empress here with a quick video on why don't more women wear watches, or really why aren't women into watches, right? And so we took a couple notes just to talk this out. I think a lot of women have spoken out about this recently, so our answers may not be that surprising. But, first off, I would say that most women probably actually do wear watches. Like women that we know, they wear watches. They're just probably not into watches. Like maybe these are enthusiast pieces. This is what we're wearing today. I'm wearing this, and Empress is wearing the Seiko. So, why aren't more women into watches? What do you think?
Well, I think for some women, they don't get passed down an heirloom piece. Mm-hmm. Like I got passed down my grandmother's Seiko. My grandmother was a nurse. It's a manual wind Seiko. I always knew I was getting that watch. My only problem with that watch is my grandmother had very tiny wrists, and it is an extremely tiny watch. And so I knew I was getting that watch, and I will one day possibly give it to one of my nieces. But there's no connecting story for them. And this watch was your so-and-so's, and this watch belonged to this. And there's not usually the discussion that some men are having at a very young age about watches, whereas young women sometimes are having discussions about, you want to buy this shoe, you want to buy this earring, this handbag.
Yeah.
Someone's not sitting down and discussing with you, and it's not even a sitting down. It's a connection thing.
Right.
You're not being made to connect with someone over a mechanical watch.
Yeah.
But you might be. I also have jewelry that is passed down to me.
Yeah, you got rings and stuff.
So those pieces I have connected with my family with those pieces, and so that's something. Also, I think there is this generation that's coming up now is a different generation because they're being taught about mechanical things in a different way than what we were.
Yeah, the STEM girls.
STEM girls.
We're not STEM people, but there may be a generation of girls that are not growing up with that stigma, or just growing up with being more encouraged to go into fields that are mechanically driven, computationally driven. And to be clear, women were always a part of the watch industry since its inception. And even now, working in the factories and the manufacturing plants, like in the German watch brands makers, they have a lot of women working on that. The Nomos and the Glashütte and the Lange, etc. There are women in the industry working, but as far as women enthusiasts, I think that you raised really good points about not having heirloom pieces necessarily, or not being hyped up about watches as a girl at a young age in the way that maybe some boys might be, or be more aware that your grandfather wore this versus knowing what your grandmother wore.
Right.
So I think that's a great point. I also think that we want to make clear most women probably do wear watches. They just are not enthusiasts because they have other options for accessories. This is pretty obvious. The jewelry, the rings, the bracelets, the gold. My mom is into diamonds and has, a lot of rings with really nice big diamonds and gold necklaces, just a ton of other Tiffany bracelets, like a bunch of other accessories, and Coach bags and shoes.
She has a collection of shoes and bags.
And I told her, if you add up all of that, if you add up your jewelry collection, your shoes, and your handbags, then we're talking about, maybe somebody that has a couple of Rolexes and a couple of higher end luxury watches in terms of price. So women are willing to spend. I guess that's part of it. And they are willing to really get into stuff and be collectors. But there's so many other accessories to choose from in general that if watches don't hook you, you're probably going to be more into your diamonds and necklaces and other stuff that does hook you. But the related thing to that, I think, is marketing. That marketing is not pitched toward women in the watch world, or the watches that are geared toward women are ornamental looking. And why would you buy the sparkly quartz watch if you could buy one for $50, keep it moving, and get a Tiffany bracelet? It doesn't seem significant or magical enough. So marketing might be another problem. It is another problem. And the sizes and all of that. We wear whatever we want to wear. Big, chunky Seiko Samurai. That's what Empress is wearing. Who definitely, she has a more feminine style of clothing and dress. And she will rock these big watches, no problem. I don't style that way, but I also can rock a range of watches and enjoy them. So it's really about marketing and about what women are encouraged to want to buy. And that's kind of unfortunate. I mean, I think more women would be into it if things were not labeled men's and women's watches. And if brands just kind of stop trying to cater to what they presume women would want and just make good, interesting watches, and people will find them. The appropriate people who want them will find them. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it, right? The culture, the marketing, women have other accessories,
Well, so we get asked, how did y'all get into watches? And you got me.
Dogs crying.
Yeah, dogs crying.
Ignore her. We're going to compress on. We're not editing this.
So I was always into the mechanical side of things, but when you are a hobbyist, you are a collector, you have that gene real life. But when you came to going fully into watches, because you had a collection of lower end watches, and when you wanted to go into the higher end watches, people always ask, how did you get me into the higher end watches? What would you say to someone that wants to get their significant other for a really long time a higher end watch?
All right, we're going to wrap it up. I would say my quick answer is that I didn't get you into the hobby this way, but in some ways, this wasn't necessary because you were going to be into it. But I would say for men out there, you want to get your wife into watches, get her a Rolex. It doesn't have to be a modern Rolex at retail. It could be a vintage one. It could be a 34 millimeter Air King, for a couple thousand, or it could be a nice new Datejust sports model, whatever. Get her Rolex because Rolex will carry weight. She will acknowledge that is a brand of watches that is top tier, and she'll always have a nice watch because of that. And maybe she'll get into it from there on, that, hey, I really love my Rolex that you got me. Maybe she'll start to get curious about it. But the reason you have to go so strong and go with Rolex, I think, is because, again, it can endure. It will speak to her in a just in terms of its prestige, because people know Rolex, and it will have the quality and the history and everything to back it up if she wants to kind of get hooked and really get into it.
I think that's a good answer.
Yeah.
I would say if you're not at the Rolex price point though, I would suggest something like Cartier.
Go for Cartier. Yeah, that's another brand that she's likely to know and likely to respect as, okay, I got a really good watch. I can recognize that I got a really good gift. And then, hey, from there, good luck. See what happens.
And then have a conversation with her about
how it works.
Say, babe, can I tell you
Cartier's
how it works?
history. Yeah, let's talk about Cartier's history.
Like if she likes history, talk about Cartier's history. Talk about Jackie O's Cartier.
Hey, I didn't even know that. Jackie O wore Cartier.
Yes.
So, do those kind of things. You could get it for, your significant other, your wife. Could you get it for your girlfriend?
No.
Okay. Don't buy.
Here's the thing. So here's the thing. If you buy this for your girlfriend and you break up, it's kind of like
you're gonna want that watch back.
It's kind of like the engagement ring.
You can't
ain't
get
getting
it back. It's not cool. Don't get the watch back.
You ain't getting it back.
So that's a gamble. There have been people that I only dated that I might have, if I were into watches, been foolish enough to buy an expensive watch for.
Well,
and to this day, that would have haunted me. I would still be like, fuming about. I would want that watch back. That's just
You
how
ain't
I
getting it
am.
back.
Like, hey, she doesn't even appreciate my watch. Like, I
So
want that
that's
watch
why
back.
you need to make sure it's long term. Y'all got kids. You ain't going nowhere.
Right, you got a mortgage, something to tell you.
Y'all got car payments, credit cards in each other's names.
Dissolve, it's going to be a lot of stuff to figure out. So it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can have a conversation about the watch if it does dissolve and you're
And
married.
then you just say, "Can you please just give this watch to this child?"
But
at some point,
don't do it if it's a girlfriend. That's our last thing.
Yeah.
So get her a Cartier, get her a Rolex, and good luck from there.